Speaking of intelligent people, Matthew Torbitt is in the studio, former Labour advisor, and certainly relations between the White House and Keir Starmer will be an interesting thing to look at in the near future with that intelligence story, but particularly in regard to his own future, because we saw at Prime Minister's questions today how under pressure he is. Now, you might say this is Westminster gossip, tittle, tattle, whatever, but who the Prime Minister is, of course, is important. Give me your thoughts on the fact that, we've got a budget in a couple of weeks' time. We've got a Prime Minister who has a large majority, yet at the same time he doesn't seem secure.
No, I said in opposition on election night or the following day that a large PLP is not necessarily a happy one. You've got a lot
Parliamentary
of people,
Labour Party, yeah.
Got a lot of people to keep happy, all with differing priorities, different types of constituencies, rural, urban, whatever else. This is insane. This is the bluntest I can put it. You, on a couple of weeks from a very key budget, you seem to be trying to keep backbenchers happy with talk of a two-child cap being lifted. That will keep many people happy in the backbenches. And you want to brief on, and this is not Keir Starmer, I have no doubt that this is all happening around him as ever and he's not in control, which is sort of a savage indictment on the current
well, it was often said when someone asked, is he the driver of the train? And they said yes, but it's one of those the Docklands Light Railway ones that are driverless trains. That was the sort of joke about Keir Starmer, that others around him were actually pulling the strings.
Yeah, no, and listen, I saw a member of the Downing Street team briefing Patrick Maguire yesterday. I saw the same member of the Downing Street staff briefing Chris Mason yesterday. Now, that might just be a coincidence, happy coincidence, but it came as no surprise to see what then followed. You're going out to say that the Prime Minister is weak 2 weeks before the budget and is possibly at risk 2 weeks before a big budget. You're then saying to be so intellectually bereft of ideas and policies, and he has to stay because we've only just got started with the work that we want to do. We've got all these policies, this renewal for Britain, a decade of renewal. You're saying basically the markets and Trump is the reason he has to stay. That's how intellectually bereft this current operation is in Downing Street. West Street comes out of it smelling the roses. You've given him a moral high ground to stand on, and he took it very well today. I thought he came across, and I say this as no real fan of West Street. He's always been very charming and nice to me, but he's certainly not my politics of the Labour Party. He came across as human, likeable, quite charming and quite funny. Which ironically is all the things that Keir Starmer struggles with and isn't, so therefore it made him look even better. I think they've probably bought themselves some time. It would be silly now to challenge before May. It would also be very silly to now not resign after May when we get beaten. So it's very much a time of if not when, or when not if. So when not if.
Certainly. And you think he'll get through to that stage and then resign?
I think possibly. We'll have to see how the budget lands. This is why I didn't buy any of this conference talk on either side, that Keir and Kemi were both safe. I thought they got through conference. That was an achievement, I suppose, with Burnham on one side, Jenrick on the other. The budget will fall very unpopular and Kemi's response will no doubt fall flat, and this talk will continue. And I had 3 or 4 different apologies this morning from people who I had been telling there is going to be a challenge after the budget, and it will come from West Street, and people say that would be insane, and yet this is the talk that we're hearing.
He denies all of it, of course, but
of course
at Prime Minister's questions, Kemi Badenoch gave the Prime Minister quite a going over. She used 3 of her 6 questions on this. Let's just take a look at some of these exchanges.
Unbelievably, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's advisers have been reduced to briefing that MPs can't get rid of him, and I'm not making this up, they can't get rid of him because it would destabilise international markets. Why does the Prime Minister think that there would be a market meltdown if the Health Secretary took over?
This is a united team and we are delivering together. Look what we're doing. The fastest growth of the G7. 5 interest rate cuts. Trade deals with the EU, the US and India, all of which they oppose. We've delivered.
And that toxic behaviour that Kemi Badenoch alleged of Keir Starmer's team, that was part of another exchange that they had at Prime Minister's questions.
This morning on the BBC, the Health Secretary said there is a toxic culture in Downing Street that needs to change. He's right, isn't he?
Mr. Speaker, my focus each and every day is on rebuilding and renewing our country. But let me be absolutely clear, any attack on any member of my cabinet is completely unacceptable. On the Health Secretary, Mr. Speaker, in relation to Health Secretary, he promised before the election that in the first year of a Labour government we'd deliver 2 million extra appointments. We didn't deliver 2 million, or 3 or 4. We delivered 5 million extra appointments. And today the Health Secretary is in Manchester, where he's announcing that because of the action he's taken to abolish NHS England, he's putting more people on the front line. He's doing a great job, as is the whole of my cabinet.
Keir Starmer there, and you'll notice in the middle of that, if you're watching on the screen, you'll notice there was a sort of a little white flash in the middle. That's to denote that time has passed, but we're not changing the meaning of what Keir Starmer has said. The editor who put that together is a guy called Porrick, and he is a man of great moral rectitude who would not try to mislead people. Not that any other broadcasting organisation would have done that, obviously, in the last few days, or any controversy about that. Matthew, on Keir Starmer, certainly he says that he didn't really engage with the toxicity. He backed his team, certainly, but as you have found out, as we know, there are senior members who've been briefing against West Streeting and so on. At what stage does the Prime Minister take responsibility for this and actually start talking about the big things that really do matter? He would say he wants to talk about the health system, for example, and that's fine. That we should be talking about that. We talked about construction today. We talked about the economy, the budget. I mean, this kind of who's up, who's down kind of stuff. It is important to a degree, but I just wonder at what stage you think the Labour Party is at risk of being consumed by this, because when they start talking about that, that's it. You can't really, you're sort of paralysing government, aren't you?
Too late. We're consumed. It's too late. To take responsibility, he would have to take control. Therefore, he has to sack people that are doing this sort of stuff. Doesn't matter how important they are, whether they are your ideological brain because you haven't quite got one, they have to be sacked. To also allow you to survive, if I'm honest, to send a message to the Labour backbenchers and the Cabinet who are being briefed against constantly by the same boys in number 10. We all know who they are, everybody knows it's them, and yet the Prime Minister hasn't got the backbone to go, I'm going to stand up for my MPs because I back them every step of the way. We work through this together. That's what the Labour Party is about, and unfortunately he doesn't want to do that.
Why not, do you think? Is it just weakness? Is it not understanding politics? Is it trying to focus on more important issues? What is it about his character, about the way he operates that won't... I mean, he sacked a number of people. He sacked Sue Gray. He's got rid of Matthew Doyle, who was his Director of Communications. Sue Gray was, of course, the Chief of Staff. He can be ruthless when he needs to, but he hasn't done it in regard to those people you just mentioned.
I don't know of his loyalty. The two I think of in particular have been with him since he came in as an MP, one in particular, so we're going back to 2015. Does he rely on them too much? Quite possibly, but these people are supposed to be your eyes and ears, and if they don't know that people are briefing because it's them, but to say it's not, they don't know, then you're failing, and ultimately you're killing yourself. You're killing your leadership by allowing this to happen and looking like you're not taking action, particularly when you're showing loyalty to the same people and also not committing to sack them. I actually think, as a very moot point, a very Westminster point, I actually think it's disgraceful that he's not yet spoken to West Streeting about any of this. You would want to get in front of this and go, this is nothing to do with me. People will be accountable for this, and I don't want this to ruin what we've got going forward. He shied away. That is not a leader. That is somebody that shirks responsibility, to be quite frank. We should be talking about the issues.
Well, let's talk about them now. Let's talk about the real choices. The two-child benefit cap, for example, lifting that. Is that an ideological choice? Is that a political choice to say to the backbenches, actually, I hear you, I hear what you're saying, I'm not entirely in control, therefore I've got to do what you want me to do, which I believe the recognising a Palestinian state was as a decision. Is it actually something he wants to do? Can he afford it? These are big choices that are going to be in the next couple of weeks, and it'll be fascinating to see what happens, what decisions are made, and what the outcome is politically and financially.
So I think it's a bit of both. There's an ideological point of he puts child poverty at the forefront of much of his strategy, so we're told, and that this is one of the quickest routes to lifting 600,000 kids out of poverty. There's also a political point of he needs to give a little bit of sugar to help the medicine go down with regards to budget, and there's going to be difficult decisions that Rachel Reeves is going to have to make, particularly if that's a likely raise to income tax. And they've got to be careful about how they sell this. I mean, 60% of people, when polled, support the two-child cap, and there's definitely a conversation to be had about making work pay, and you should not be able to essentially earn more or make more money on the state than you should be for working. I think the way the Labour Party would be best framing this is, look, yes, you should plan to have children, you should be able to afford to have them and all the rest of it. But in some cases, things happen. People are made redundant, there's a death in the family, all these sorts of things.
Marriages break up.
Yeah, and should the child, because that is who's punished, should the child be punished in this case? Do we want to look after our children and have them go out
So
into the
you,
world
by
with
what
great
I'm
kids?
hearing, think it should be lifted?
I think in principle, yeah. I totally get the economic argument. I think there's other ways that maybe you could do this to please people. You know, I spoke on your show previously about removing VAT, and I think that allows certainly people on the poorer end of the spectrum to have more money and be able to spend that money, and then that turns into sort of little bits of growth in the economy. There's other ways you can do this, probably not as palatable to definitely very angry, or as Starmer's operation called them, feral backbenchers. You've got to keep them on side as long as you can.
Okay, Matthew, thank you very much indeed. That's Matthew Torbitt there, former Labour advisor, joining us in the studio.